Picture a single, tiny drop of water resting on a garden leaf. Now, it seems perfectly ordinary, right? But there is actually a creature living right inside that drop of water. And in just a few minutes, we're going to explore how it can literally survive its own death. So, meet the tardigrade, or as it's more commonly known, the water bear. Now, if you look at this little guy under a microscope, it honestly looks like a cross between a cuddly bear and, I don't know, a slightly terrifying Pixar villain. It's got this translucent body, 8 legs, and it just lumbers around in this weirdly fascinating way. But to give you a sense of scale here, in real life, this thing is smaller than a single grain of salt. And they live basically everywhere. We're talking the mossy rooftops of our houses, dry deserts, the bottom of the deep ocean, even buried way down in Antarctic ice. They really don't need much to get by, just a little water now and then. But here is where things get absolutely wild. The extreme conditions this microscopic animal can withstand are just mind-boggling. I mean, we are talking about surviving being boiled alive. We're talking about being frozen to nearly absolute zero, which, by the way, is the temperature where all atomic movement basically just stops. They can be crushed under the kind of immense pressure that would easily flatten solid steel. And, maybe most unbelievably, they can be blasted directly out into the deadly vacuum of space. And they just keep going. So how on earth do they pull this off? Well, their secret is surprisingly simple, but also profoundly complex. They don't try to fight death. They just kind of stop being alive for a while. Scientists call this incredible state cryptobiosis. When the water in a tardigrade's environment dries up, or conditions just become totally unsurvivable, it essentially hits the biological pause button. It rewinds to a state before biology even needs to keep the lights on. And as we'll see, this exact biological loophole is why NASA is completely obsessed with them. Okay, let's break down how this magic trick actually works at the cellular level. First, as things start getting rough, it pauses all of its normal biological functions. Second, its body visibly shrivels up. It curls into this tiny, dry, seed-like husk. And third, and this is the real magic here, it replaces its internal water content with a highly specialized, protective, glass-like protein. So think of it as its internal liquids literally turning into crystalline glass. It isn't actively surviving the cold or the radiation when it's like this, it's just completely paused. To really get this, let's look at a stark contrast between us and them. Think about a human cell on one hand and a tardigrade cell on the other. For us, if we're exposed to extreme freezing temperatures, the water inside our cells turns into ice crystals. And those crystals expand, acting like tiny knives that physically shred our cell membranes from the inside out. For a human cell, it's just game over. But for the tardigrade, that glass-like protein state completely protects its biology. There are 0 ice crystals to rupture anything. It just safely turns the volume of life all the way down to 0, waiting in perfect suspension until things get better. Which brings us to a massive, mind-bending shift in scale. Back in 2007, the European Space Agency decided to put this survival mechanism to the ultimate test. And they did something that, frankly, sounds straight out of a science fiction movie. Astrobiologists took these tiny creatures, put them on a sample tray, and sent them directly into the open vacuum of space. No protection, no specialized spacesuits, no shielded containers. Just raw, unfiltered exposure to the absolute void. And they left them out there for 10 days. 10 agonizing days. Just drifting in the deadly, unshielded conditions of open space, constantly bombarded by intense cosmic radiation. They faced wild temperature swings, going from the freezing shadows of orbit straight to the boiling heat of direct sunlight. All of this while surrounded by an absolute vacuum that would instantly boil the fluids out of almost any other living thing on our planet. And here is the ultimate punchline of this entire experiment. When the scientists brought those tiny husks back inside, gave them a little bit of water and returned them to normal conditions, they rehydrated. And they were fine. I mean, they simply woke back up and started lumbering around as if absolutely nothing had happened. They casually survived an environment they had absolutely no evolutionary business being in. Now, let's ground this sci-fi reality for a second and look at exactly why this matters for us today. The leap from tardigrades floating in space to the future of human medical research is actually way shorter than you might think. We aren't just studying these creatures because they're cool biological oddities, right? We're studying them because they might actually hold the key to solving some of our biggest medical challenges right here on Earth. In fact, researchers right now are actively studying those exact protective glass-like tardigrade proteins we talked about earlier. Why? Well, primarily for organ preservation. Just imagine if we could suspend human organs in that same biological pause, keeping them perfectly viable for transplant for days or even weeks. It would completely eliminate that frantic race against a ticking clock that surgeons face today. And they're even looking at applying this to storing human blood, potentially creating a future where life-saving blood supplies don't require constant, power-hungry refrigeration to stay fresh. That would be an absolute game-changer for disaster relief and remote medicine. Now look, to be totally clear about this, it's still early days and it is highly experimental. Nobody is freezing humans for deep space travel just yet. But the biology behind it? That part is already real. The foundational mechanism that makes cryptobiosis possible isn't just a theory, it's a proven reality happening right now in modern labs. The pathway to these incredible medical advancements is being entirely paved by this tiny, resilient creature. So as we zoom back out from the cutting-edge labs to that ordinary garden leaf where we started, I want you to remember this number, 5. This tiny creature, smaller than a grain of salt, living inside a single drop of morning dew, has already survived 5 planetary mass extinctions. When fire, ice, and asterons wiped out almost everything else on Earth, the water bear just curled up, hit pause, and waited it out. And you know what? It will very likely survive whatever comes next too. Which leaves us with this final, kind of haunting existential thought. The tardigrade has perfected the ultimate cheat code for survival. The real question is, will we? Definitely think about that the next time you look closely at a patch of moss. And hey, if learning about indestructible water bears and this kind of strange, beautiful science is your thing, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming explainers. New ones drop every Wednesday and Saturday. Thanks so much for exploring with me today.